What's up, guys? Welcome to the second take. I'm Zach. Jonah's not going to be doing the podcast this week. He had some technical difficulties at school, so it's just going to be me. He'll be back next week. We're going to do the same thing, make our picks. I will make Jonah's picks for him. He texted them to me. And also, one of the first mock drafts for the NFL was released this week. So I'll talk about that just a little bit and see what else. So we're going to start with the mock draft. Pretty well known by most people that watch college football that Myles Garrett, the defensive end from Texas A&M, is the best player coming out. He's just an absolute animal. He's Jadeveon Clowney, except has a higher motor, doesn't really give up like Clowney did, and plays every play. And he's also bigger, stronger, and maybe even quicker than Jadeveon Clowney, which is obviously a pretty terrifying combination. He was not selected first in the mock draft. It was actually Deshaun Kaiser from Notre Dame, the quarterback, mainly because the Browns obviously don't have a quarterback right now. Some people think that Cody Kessler played pretty well in the minutes he played last week, but not enough promise to necessarily commit to him for the future. And this quarterback class with Kaiser, Watson, Brad Kaya, Luke Falk, there's some solid players. I don't think Kaiser is better than Deshaun Watson. I think you're crazy if you don't draft Deshaun Watson, especially if you're taking a quarterback. I think he can be a really, really, really good quarterback in the NFL for a really long time. Really smart, really athletic, can throw really far, really accurate. I mean, he checks every box for me. So those are two of my favorite players, Deshaun Watson and Myles Garrett. Also really love Christian McCaffrey. I think you'd have to be crazy not to. A lot of people don't know if he's going to be good in the NFL, and I don't know what they don't see. He's a running back, and if you don't think he can be a running back in the NFL, I don't know about that, because I think he can be an all-pro running back in the NFL, but he also can return kicks. He can play the slot for a receiver. He can play on special teams anywhere you need him to. He does everything. He probably could even be your quarterback if you needed it. This mock draft had him going to the Giants, and that would be a dream come true for me. I couldn't think of a player I would want more than Christian McCaffrey, even if we do have 4 running backs right now that I think are all pretty talented. I would take Christian McCaffrey in the blink of an eye. So whoever gets him is going to be really lucky. Watch out, NFL, if he goes to a team like the Patriots or the Packers, the Saints, someone like that with a coach and a quarterback that really know how to use him. That could be disastrous. Another player I really liked was Desmond King. They have him going late, towards the end of the first round. He's a cornerback safety type from Iowa, absolute ball hawk. He led the NCAA in interceptions. Last year, he has a chance to break the all-time record for interceptions in NCAA. He just knows where the ball is, and he's always around the ball. One knock on him is that people don't think he's athletic enough for the NFL. That's always an interesting problem with college to the NFL athletes. Like, you don't really know how it translates. Even in all pro sports, you need what makes you good in college isn't necessarily athleticism. That just makes you stand out. But you can get by in college being really fundamentally sound, and that usually doesn't work in the pros for the most part. I think King is athletic enough, and I think his technique as a corner will make it so he is always at least in the vicinity of where the ball is going to be, and his hands and ability to go get the ball are going to make it so that he's a pretty good corner for a long time. And to continue with the cornerback role, let's talk about 2 more. Jalen Tabor is from Florida. Really good cover corner. Really physical, really athletic. Has some off-the-field problems, but if he can square himself up, he's going to be a really good pro. There's nothing to not like about him other than the off-the-field stuff. And then Jordan Lewis from Michigan. I don't know if you saw it last week, but he made potentially the greatest interception of all time. Reached up with one hand and snatched it while he was trailing a receiver. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest going and watch it. That basically will tell you all you need to know about Jordan Lewis. Only knock I can find on him is he might be a little undersized. Hopefully he can put on some muscle in the NFL, but still a really good cover corner. Harbaugh is the coach of Michigan, obviously. I trust anyone coming from his system. So, everyone talks about Jabril Peppers on Michigan, but I think Jordan Lewis is the better cover corner, the better player on defense. Just Peppers is the better all-around player because he can literally play any position on the field. So that helps him there. But those two are definitely going to go in the first round, so that'll be interesting to see where they fall. And then the last two players I'll talk about, both from Alabama. Jonathan Allen, defensive tackle. I think he was the better defensive tackle of the team last year, which saw two really good defensive tackles get drafted. We had Jaron Reed, who went to the Falcons, and then we had A'Shawn Robinson, who ended up with the Detroit Lions. So I think Reed was in the first round and Robinson went in the second round early on, but still fantastic talent, and I think Jonathan Allen's even better. He can play the defensive end position in a 3-4, so that's going to help him a lot too. I think he's absolutely a first-round talent, should be a top 15 pick, someone that can really shore up your defensive line. Not necessarily going to be stuffing the stat sheet, but he will make his impact felt throughout the game, so that's someone that you definitely want on your team. And then lastly, Reuben Foster, the linebacker on Alabama, probably one of the most underrated players in college football, if not the most. He doesn't do anything wrong. He can cover a receiver if you need him to. He stuffs the line of scrimmage, is all over the field. I think this is one of the best linebacking talents that I've seen in a really long time. One comparison I saw was Patrick Willis, and I think that hits the nail right on the head. I think he can come in to the NFL wherever he finds himself and immediately be a Pro Bowl linebacker, maybe even a Pro Bowl linebacker, All-Pro linebacker. So this is someone definitely to look out for. So just watch for these guys in the next couple of weeks. We're about a quarter of the way through the college football season so far. So I just wanted to get some names out there, give you people to look after. I promise you, if you watch Stanford, Clemson, Texas A&M, Iowa, Florida, Michigan, Alabama, you're going to recognize these guys and you're going to be like, oh yeah, obviously they're going to be big-time talents. And as we get closer to the end of the season, the bowl season, we'll talk more about some of these players and some new players. I know we haven't talked much about college football yet, but we'll definitely get there. So now we're going to move into the NFL picks. Jonah is still beating me. I don't know the exact score, but he's up by 2 or 3, I think, because I keep picking the Giants and he keeps not picking the Giants, and that's working for him pretty nicely. But anyways, first game we're going to pick is the Jets-Steelers. Jets are a team that a lot of people are confused with so far this year. Their secondary, which has always been thought to be pretty good, is actually pretty bad. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, who had a huge year last year, has almost been non-existent this year. I saw a stat today. He is on pace to throw 16 touchdowns this year and 40 interceptions. Obviously, that is not a number you'd want to be anywhere near. That's pretty terrifying if you're a Jets fan. Throwing more than 2 interceptions a game is not anywhere near good quarterback play. However, I do still think they're a good football team. They're definitely better than they're playing. I'll give them that much. And then we also have a Steelers team that's coming off a good win, really a pouncing, just blowout of the Chiefs. Chiefs are a pretty good team, and the Steelers made them look like they didn't really belong in the NFL. So Le'Veon Bell being back is huge. He's already rushed for 150 yards in one game. I don't know what more you want. They got Antonio Brown, Big Ben, and Le'Veon Bell might be the best trio of offensive players in the NFL. Probably is, no doubt in my mind, actually. So for that reason, I'm going to go with the Steelers, and Jonah is also taking the Steelers. Next game we're going to pick is the Bengals and Cowboys. Cowboys have looked pretty good so far this year. Their defense was what most people were worried about, and Dak Prescott also. The defense has been decent enough to keep them alive in games, and Dak Prescott has been everything you could imagine and so much more. He doesn't do anything to lose a football game. He only helps. He doesn't throw for a lot of touchdowns, at least hasn't yet, and I think it's because they're trying to not rush him into things and don't want to give him the full set of the playbook yet, just because he's so young, and they're going to try to bring him along slowly, but he's doing everything he can to help the team win games. Ezekiel Elliott's getting pretty much up to speed. He's had some great weeks here recently. After a rough start against the Giants, he's really picked it up. But the Bengals are also a really good football team. A.J. Green is A.J. Green. There's no need to be said there. Andy Dalton is actually, I think, the third leading passer in the NFL. I don't think anyone really saw that one coming. But Gio, Bernard, and Jeremy Hill are both playing pretty well. Defense has been decent so far, not up to their standards, but been pretty good. And for all those reasons, I think the Bengals are going to continue to get back on track, continue to get better, and beat the Cowboys this week. Jonah also is taking the Bengals. Hopefully you can recognize that he's not a true fan since he's not taking the Cowboys, and I've taken the Giants every week, even though we've played the Vikings last week, and we have to play the Packers this week, and let's go right into that game. Obviously, you know where I'm going with this one. You know where Jonah's going with this one. I'll be taking the Giants. Jonah's taking the Packers. But to break it down real quick, Packers have Aaron Rodgers. And you don't really need to talk much about anyone else on the team because Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. He can make any throw. He does it all the time. Right when you think you got him sacked, he ends up throwing for a touchdown. You can be draped all over his body, and it doesn't affect him at all. So that's what we're up against. Giants are coming off a pretty... I think they played decent against the Vikings. The Vikings are a really, 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 really good football team. If you don't play perfect, you're not going to beat them. And even if you do play perfect, you might not beat them. So it's going to be tough for the Giants to beat the Packers again this week. Their offense has been really shaky. Scored only 10 points against the Vikings, but like I said, the Vikings defense is great. It's the week before that against the Redskins that scares me because they didn't score that many either, although they started out pretty hot. I wish so badly that Eli would only throw the ball to Sterling Shepard, Odell, and Victor Cruz, but that doesn't happen. I would love to see him get Odell more involved, especially early on, and use our weapons. Even though I know we have a ton of weapons, we don't use the right ones, and we don't use them enough. Defense has played pretty well. Last week, 24 points given up against the Vikings I don't think it was a bad performance. One was a muffed punt, which gave them the ball in our territory. And then there was two drives that went right down the field, but for the most part, our defense held up. Unfortunately, not when we needed them the most, when we were making a slight comeback, but they still played well enough, in my opinion. They're going to definitely need to play a lot better against Aaron Rodgers, though. You need to be perfect against him. We've only caused one turnover so far this year, and it was on special teams, so we really need our defense to step up and cause some turnovers, and we need the defensive line not to be good, but to be great. Everyone keeps saying the defensive line has been good so far this year, and that can't happen. We need them to be great. We need them, instead of getting quarterback hurries, we need them to get sacks. We need batted balls, we need interceptions. Instead of forced fumbles, we need fumble recoveries. So we got to figure it out quick. Start out 2-0. We can't end up 2-3. So I expect a big performance out of the Giants and a bigger performance out of Eli. I think we will outpace the Packers and Giants will beat them. And Jonah's obviously going with the Packers. Next is the Monday night. That's a Sunday night game, by the way. Next is Monday night, Panthers and Bucks. Cam Newton right now is in concussion protocol. He has not practiced yet. I think it's probably 51-49 that he will play. Obviously not too confident, but I still think he will. I would be surprised if he doesn't play, but I know that the team is going to be cautious at the same time, which makes me be like 50-50 up in the air. So I'm picking this game as if he would play. I think the outcome would be the same even if he wouldn't play. But the Panthers are having some questions on defense. Just gave up 300 yards to Julio Jones, 500 yards to Matt Ryan, and got blown out by the Falcons. So that, coupled with the fact that they just released today, who most people think was their best corner, and Ben Wickery, really a surprising move in my opinion. But obviously they must know what they're doing, I would hope. The Bucs have been interesting. I think. I mean, Jameis has a good game every now and again. It seems like almost every other week. And they got enough playmakers, and their defense can hold its own. And I think it's going to be a good game, especially if the Panthers secondary is shaky like it was last week, and Jameis can play well. I do think the Panthers will win this game. I cannot see the Panthers starting 1-4. That would really be shocking. I think Derek Anderson is good enough to get the team a win. Also, if Cam can't play, so I'm going to go with the Panthers here, and Jonah's actually going to do the same thing. But like we said, it's going to be a good game. Then we have our lock and our upset. So this week, I think any of you could pick the lock. Patriots play the Browns. Tom Brady's first game back. The Browns still probably are going to be starting Cody Kessler. I don't know. I mean, if you think the Browns are going to win this game, you'll probably be the first one in that line. And if they do, all glory to you. That would be pretty impressive. But there's not really too much to talk about. I think the Patriots are definitely going to win this game, so that's going to be our lock. And then for our upset, this actually hurts me to say, but I'm going to end up going with the Redskins. Redskins are playing the Ravens this week. Ravens are the worst 4-0 team I think I've ever seen in my life. And it helps that they're not 4-0. They're 3-1, sorry, because they lost to the Raiders last week. They probably should have beat the Raiders last week, honestly. They lost 28-27. And Derek Carr had to throw a late touchdown pass. So I just don't think the Ravens really have that much. This is an interesting game because it's a rivalry. Obviously, the Redskins from D.C. and the Ravens from Baltimore. It is in Baltimore, but not too far to travel for Redskins fans. They might not have Ryan Kerrigan, which could be a huge loss. But other than that, I still think they're the better team. Baltimore, when Baltimore was 3-0, the records of the teams they beat were 1-8, and now they just lost to the Raiders, as I said. So they really haven't done nothing to be impressive so far. Kirk Cousins seems like he might have found his groove. And even though the Redskins are coming off a shaky performance against the Browns last week, I still think they're a better team, as I've said. So I'm going Redskins. Jonah is going to go with the Chicago Bears over the Colts. He, for some reason, always loves the Bears. So it's kind of interesting that he always picks the Bears. However, Brian Hoyer is still the quarterback with Jay Cutler out. I like the Colts in this game personally, but I know for the Bears, Jordan Howard has been really good in his first game as a starter, and I think he's going to be really good again against the Colts. Alshon Jeffrey is a beast as always, and Brian Hoyer actually has not thrown an interception yet, which is kind of surprising. But I think the Colts still just have too much. I'm a big-time fan of Andrew Luck. T.Y. Hilton has been phenomenal this year, and Frank Gore has been pretty good too. So I think that'll be a good game to say the least, but I like the Colts, and Jonah likes the Bears. So those are our picks for this week. To end, since it's only been 20 minutes so far, I'm going to talk a little bit about Odell. So he's caught a lot of flack recently for his actions. Obviously, I'm a little biased. Odell is one of my favorite players in all of sports, and definitely my favorite player in the NFL. And I do think there's a slight injustice towards him. If you watch the Vikings game, he was in a good heated athlete type battle with Xavier Rhodes. Something that I think is completely fine. Back and forth, physical play, taking nothing away from the game, just what you want to see out of two highly talented competitive athletes. A play occurred where Odell caught the ball, stepped out of bounds with 1 foot, and as he was putting his 2nd foot down out of bounds, Xavier Rhodes hit him just in the hip area. It wasn't a huge shot. I don't think it was a cheap shot either. Odell didn't like it too much and turned around and started walking towards the ref, basically asking for a flag. And in the process said something to Xavier Rhodes, and he got a taunting penalty. Next play, same exact play. Odell catches a little out, steps out of bounds. This time both feet are out of bounds, and he takes a 3rd step, and he gets hit up high by Xavier Rhodes. Odell says no words, walks by the official. Xavier Rhodes starts mouthing off. No flags thrown whatsoever. Should have been a late hit. Could have been a late hit on the first one. Odell should not have been flagged for asking for a flag. And Xavier Rhodes could have gotten a taunting penalty also. So, of the 4 possible outcomes, none of them happened, and the only one that happened was one that shouldn't have happened. So, then you see Odell come out and say that he's not having fun anymore, and that he's just not enjoying the game because he feels like he's being targeted, and he's completely right. If you go back to week 3 when the Giants played the Redskins, one of the first drives of the game, Odell jumped up in the end zone. The ball was nowhere on that side of the field. It was like a distraction type play. He jumped up in the air. Josh Norman caught him while he was in the air, took about 10 steps carrying Odell, and then dropped him at the feet of the official to no flag. It was almost like the official just didn't watch the play, even though it happened right in front of his face. That's a taunting at the least. That's a unsportsmanlike conduct. That's something. Especially in that matchup where they literally went up to them before the game and said, any mistakes, they're going to be flags. You cannot act the way you did the last year. So it seems like the refs are only thinking about Odell in these scenarios, and that the other person doesn't matter. And the only way Odell acts like he does is when he gets provoked. So if you just flag the provocation, then it wouldn't be a problem for Odell. He won't react if he feels like he's being protected, and he's not being protected, and he's 100% right. And then everyone's saying he's such a crybaby because he was storming up and down the sideline against the Redskins and basically throwing a temper tantrum. And I'm completely fine with that. As a Giants fan, I would love to see that. I wish we had more players that acted like that and didn't just do everything by the book, because he so badly wants to win, and he so badly wants the ball in his hands and wants to make a play that when it doesn't happen, and when it doesn't happen for long periods of time, he gets upset. And he literally has to do those things so that Eli can be like, okay, he's right, I need to give him the ball. If you watched the Redskins game, when he threw that temper tantrum, the next drive out, Eli threw him the ball 3 straight plays for a total of 60 yards. And then he went away from him, and then we lost the game. Odell is the best player on the field every time he steps on the field. I don't care what anyone says. That's the truth. I don't care if I'm a Giants fan, if I'm a Cowboys fan, if I'm an Eagles fan, if I'm a Redskins fan. That's the truth. He needs the ball in his hands, and Eli needs to notice that he needs the ball in his hands. He always goes away from him, and it doesn't make any sense because, like I said, he's the best player. So he acts out the way that he does because first he wants the ball. First he wants to win. Second, he wants the ball, and third, he wants to be the reason they win. So that's not making him a selfish player either. That's him understanding that he is the best player, and he knows he needs the ball to win the game. And Eli needs to notice that too. So I think Eli's going to give him the ball a little bit more. And he also, Odell now realizes, I think he realizes that he needs to just not be so outlandish, I guess. If he's feeling the way he is, he needs to keep it inside a little bit and just not he can show emotion. I need Odell to show emotion. If he doesn't show emotion, that means we lost him, and that means that we are not going to be a good football team. Odell needs to be the way that he is in order for him to be the beast and the freak that he is. And Brandon Marshall said the same exact thing. He just needs to understand that he needs to channel and control that passion and put it on the field and try not to get involved in these spats. And even if he does get involved in these spats, just don't take it too far, that one step over the line where you get a penalty. Just control yourself, play within yourself, and be yourself. And that's going to make Odell possibly the best receiver that we've ever seen, but definitely the best receiver in the NFL. I know everyone's on Antonio Brown's high horse and Julio Jones, and those are both fantastic receivers, but I'm telling you that Odell is different than them. He's better than them, and he has so much time to prove that. I hope to God that he doesn't lose his passion for the football team, because if he does, it's going to be a sad time for the NFL, because they're going to lose one of the better players that they've had in a long time, and hopefully that doesn't happen. But I have all the confidence in the world in Odell. I hope the Giants rally behind him. I hope that he can rally behind himself and keep playing with the fire he plays with. And that's what makes Odell, and that's what makes him such a polarizing figure. So watch this weekend. It's going to be a good Sunday night game, I think. I hope the Giants look to get Odell involved, like I said, and turn the season around. But just before you make a decision on what you think of Odell, just watch him and watch what happens. Don't watch what the media shows you. Watch what you can see yourself. There was a good video going around this week from Brad Wing, who's the Giants punter and was Odell's teammate at LSU, of the Redskins game 2 weeks ago. Everyone was complaining because Odell threw the temper tantrum on the sidelines, and people think he's like all into himself and no good and all that kind of stuff. And there's a video of him standing on the sideline right before the game when all the military personnel are coming out to bring the flag out, and he stood there and shook every single one of the military members' hands. Had to have been over 200 people. While everyone else was warming up, he went out of his way to make sure that he could greet every single one of them and tell them thank you for their service. So that's the Odell that I know. That's the Odell that the Giants know. So when you watch him, just watch him, and watch if he does something. I guarantee you it's in a reaction. So all he needs to do is figure out how to control his reactions, not his actions. He's not some head case that just acts like a nut job all the time. He does it in response when he feels like he's either being threatened or not being protected by the officials, or being threatened by a player, like last year in the Josh Norman feud. If you didn't hear, they brought a bat out, and basically some guy said he was going to break both Odell's legs, and obviously that's not what you want to hear as an athlete. So he doesn't do things just for the hell of it. He does things as a reaction. And I truly believe that we're going to see a better Odell from here on out. And if we do, watch out, everyone. So, like I said, just watch Odell and make your decision based on your own opinion, not on what you hear from other people, not even what you hear from me. Go out and watch him play. And I think you'll be pretty happy with what you see. So that'll do it for this week. As I said, Jonah will be back next week. He just had some things going on at school, so he's going to be back next week with us. We'll do more of this NFL stuff. Hopefully we don't have to talk about Odell again. And probably some MLB playoffs, since we have those started right now. Currently the Rangers are down 2-0 to the Blue Jays and headed to Toronto, so that looks like Toronto's going to get out of there, have an upset the first round. The Dodgers and Nationals are currently playing. The Red Sox lost Game 1 to the Indians, and the Indians are playing really well in Game 2 so far. So that also could be a major problem for the Red Sox if they go down 2-0. So we'll probably give you a little bit more of that next week. But thank you for listening, and we will see you back here next week.